Hello? This is a great fucking time to be alive. We're using terms like demilitarize, decriminalize, decarcerate, defund, and I want this. We couldn't speak about this years ago. I'm 10 months removed from Attica Yard. I served 39 years in prison. I went in there when I was 16. I came out when I was 55, and I've been in here 10 months working in this community. And when I tell you it's a great time to be alive, because you're part of a historical moment. This is a moment where we're challenging ideas of bigotry, sexism, and race. And we're challenging the idea of whiteness. History will remember those who betrayed whiteness. White privilege, white identity, white performance. I think this case was made salient by Amy Cooper. Amy Cooper is a case that happened in Central Park right after the murder of Floyd. And as soon as this woman was confronted by a black man over bleaching her dog, she weaponized her whiteness against that individual. That shows how white perform and how we intersects with the black body. And one of the places where it's most focused at is in the criminal justice system, right? Hello? When we see this idea of race become more apparent is when a black body encounters the criminal justice system. At that point, we see the violence against the black body. We see it in Floyd, and we see it in many others, too many to name. But our focus is generally at that point, at the front end of the criminal justice system. We think that once the individual is arrested, violently tried, violently convicted, that the violence ends. I'm here to tell you that the violence continues throughout his incarceration. While in prison, despite the fact that blacks and brown bodies make up 87% of the population, they get the shitty jobs. White individuals get the good jobs. In fact, some institutions have settlements and agreements that they have to use quotas in order to hire individuals because they were discriminating against black and brown bodies. It happens at the parole hearings. If a black person goes to the parole with a similar crime, and a white person goes to parole with a similar crime, the white person is more likely to get released. 4 times more likely to get released than the black body. And it happens in re-entry. When the individual tries to get back into the community, there's less housing for us. There's less opportunities to access the services that we need. There's less opportunity for transportation, phone calls, and all the resources that a white person would generally have because white privilege is enacted and performed, and it's had access to these services that we don't have. So I'm here to tell you that racism does not stop at the criminal justice system when the door is closed. It happens throughout. It happens when the individual come out. There's such a thing called civil death. Civil death occurs once you're convicted of a crime. You lose your right to vote, the right to drive, the right to own a gun, the right to live in certain spaces, the right to exist, the right to be recognized as a human being. So it continues throughout. I'm telling you this because I'm going through it. And despite the fact that I earned a master's degree while incarcerated, that I walked out of Attica Yard into Cornell University to take 2 graduate courses. Despite the fact that I'm working on another degree from Bard College right now, that I'm writing a research paper on the philosophy of race and how gender and identity is being performed, despite all this, I'm still having problems accessing the service I have because of my body. The only reason I'm standing here today is because I demand to be recognized. I demand to be validated. I demand to be affirmed. And I'm trying to change the paradigm of social activism, right? I arrived at Ithaca, I don't know where the fuck I was at. 39 years in prison, I don't know how to access phones, access service, access technology, access people. So what I did, I sat on the comments and I started looking at shit. And I started looking for social justice issues, right? And I think Savannah mentioned earlier that despite the fact that Ithaca appears to be a liberal place, it does have a racist, it has a problem with race. Blacks and brown bodies make up 4% of the population, have 25, 26% of the contact with the criminal justice system. I like to think that Ithaca is operating on a metaphor of that movie Get Out, where everybody's being in prison, but nobody knows what's happening because everybody's being hypnotized by the very progressivism and activism and liberation of this community. Right? So it's operating under that idea, right? So I started doing social activism, and I started working in the jungle. I broke sleeping bags. I had relocated people. I had brought over 1,500 meals. I do telemeds. I intervene when people are having problems. I de-escalate problems. I spend more time in the jungle than in my house, and which is problematic with my wife, but that's an issue that our therapist is going to have to handle. I'm challenging the idea of social activism in Ithaca, right? Because in Ithaca, despite it has its problems and it has this metaphor operating because it thinks that it's doing good. It has more non-for-profit organizations than individuals that need the services of those non-for-profits. So what happens is that the resources are so dispersed that they can't provide the services to any one individual because they have 25 organizations that have to share the money. I mean, that's really fucking problematic, right? So I'm challenging these ideas, right? And I'm challenging you, right? So what you want to do, you want to appear here with a sign. Oh, I had that sign made, by the way. The Lost Cat, anybody knows about the Lost Cat. I'm very honored that the guy was willing to do that for me. I'm challenging you to get involved directly. Do something directly. You know, if you want to help people re-entering, they need phones, right? They need transportation, they need bikes. I just spoke to the guy from Rivera to try to get them, to provide us with bikes when guys are re-entering, because they need the transportation. They're being housed at the Cornell Lodge or the Quality Inn, and they need a bike to get to the resources they need on State Street, because everything that they need is on State Street. DSS, drugs, staff, mental health, drugstores on Greens, you know what I mean? So they need a bike and stuff like that. So if you have phones that you're not using, I'm willing to take them. We'll repurpose them and we'll issue them to guys if they come in and they can have a phone. Housing is a major problem. Housing is a major problem for everybody in Ithaca, right? But we want to lower the barriers, because what happens is this. When an individual is released from prison, he's not considered homeless, because he had a house in prison. So what happens is he has to stay in the shelter for 90 days to qualify as homeless, so he could get a voucher, and then he has to wait anywhere from 6 to 2 years to get an apartment. So what ends up happening is that we have a recidivism rate in the shelter of 80%. That is worse than any fucking state in the nation. You know what I mean? And it is a horrible situation. So we're trying to lower the barrier. So those things you can advocate for and lobby for, but the things that you can do directly are phones, bicycles, mentorship. Nobody starves in Ithaca, so please don't send no food. But there's food everywhere, right? There's these pantries that are filled. But services that you think a person would need to successfully enter our communities. You know, I interview a lot of parolees, and they mention 3 things in this order: housing, transportation, and technology. They think that with these things, they can access jobs, they can move around, they can have a stable place where they can put their property without fear of being robbed, I mean, and they can make a successful transition. So I challenge you to get directly involved. It's not that difficult. And when you see a human being, right, you see a human being. And when you see a human being, you say, what would I want? What would I want? You know what I mean? Ask yourself that question. If you ask that question, hello, and if you ask that question, you will never go wrong. And that's my message for today. I thank you. I'm so happy to be with you.